All right, so awesome. Thanks. Is that Zubia, by the way?
Yeah, it's your niece.
Oh, that's funny. I haven't seen her yet. So Kamal just had his first kid, a baby Zubia. Congrats.
Thank you guys so much.
Um, anyway, so this is my brother-in-law, Kamal Bey. A little bit about his background. He's been wrestling since, gosh, he was a little kid. And he is the number one Greco-Roman wrestler in America right now. No small feat. He won one of the first world championships in a generation for the U.S. And after a lifetime of hard work, multiple national titles, etc., um, he went to the Paris 2024 Olympics, and that was a lifelong dream. Um, and so, a big thing I've learned, just in business, etc., is what it takes to compete. Not just to be a winner or successful. What it takes to compete at the absolute elite level. When you are dealing with the top person, the champion of another country that represents a long, maybe centuries rich culture of wrestling, source of national pride, etc., hard work, discipline. Um, and so I'm really, really grateful to have Kamal here to give us a little bit of his background and share his experiences on mindset and answer a lot of great questions. So with that, I'll give it to you, Kamal. Thanks.
Thank you so much for the introduction. So I'm just gonna add a little bit more to that. So my name is Kamal Bey. I am your Paris 2024 Olympian at 77 kilos in the Greco-Roman wrestling category for the United States. I started wrestling when I was 3 years old. So I'm 27 now. So along the 24 years of wrestling underneath my belt. In that time, I became a state champion, a Fargo national champion, a six-time U.S. Open national champion, a Pan American Games champion, a Pan Am champion, a junior world champion, and a three-time senior world team member. So a lot of accomplishments and accolades to go by in those 24-year period of wrestling. But my brother-in-law invited me today to talk to you guys a little bit about resiliency and mindset. And but those two things sort of kind of go hand in hand. And I think I want to focus more so on mindset first. Mindset is one of the biggest things that pretty much shape the way we move through the world, right? For me personally, I'm in a combative sport. So if you don't have your mind right, it's easy to get beat up. It's easy to take a couple more bruises and punches than you wanted. But you sort of kind of roll with it. And one of the things I do to kind of like, lock in and just kind of remember my purpose is remembering my why. Why am I doing this, Um, my reason why is because one, I like to represent myself as a tough person. I like to represent my family, and it's amazing being an ambassador of the sport as well as the country. Two, everyone who's there training with me, it's one thing to be successful. It's another thing to help other people become successful with you. My teammates, my coaches, my family, they all push me to be better, to make me want to be better, and being vulnerable to the point where you are open to criticism. Criticism is never meant to actually harm you, more so to enlighten you on your weak areas and where you can improve. So always being vulnerable and having that open mind that these people are here for me. They want the best for me. Um, the next thing is realizing you do something every single day. And I make a little joke about this though. People always ask like, are you nervous, about going to this tournament? And I always joke about it and say, nervous, I already got my plane ticket. It's too late. It's too late. I'm already over there. I'm already overseas. I'm already competing. And when you compete with the best people in the country, it's like secondhand to go overseas and compete against the best people over there, it's kind of crazy. I think it's super crazy to like be nervous about that, something that you do every day. Um, and along with that, it's not being afraid to lose, putting everything out on the line. It's one of the hardest things us athletes have to do. You have to, welcome the idea that, you might lose and overcome that. Um, for us, you wrestle for 6 minutes a match, and you might have maybe five, maybe six matches that day. And the biggest thing I tell people is, failure is broken focus. You need to stay focused for that 6 minutes. And the world, and it might not seem like a long time, but when you're, wrestling with someone for 6 minutes, close contact, that 6 minutes feels like forever. I don't know if you guys are too familiar with like, scrambling and stuff like that, but in a scramble situation and similar to life, it might only be 30 seconds, but you look over at that clock and you're like, no way was that 30 seconds. It feels like, 2 minutes has just passed by. And that's also very similar to life, you don't get to pick your perfect days, right? You only get to pick the days you get to show up. And you need to show up every day, regardless if you're upset, regardless if you're hurting, you need to be a student of the game, regardless of what areas you're learning from. And that's just a little bit of like mindset, I like to think of it as you don't want people like to get ahead of you. You got to be competitive every single day, even if you're not feeling it. And me personally, my Olympic journey, my story of how I got to the Olympics was crazy. 2024 was probably the one of the toughest times in my life. And I had areas where my mindset was a little bit shaky and a little bit rocky, where I was sort of kind of forgetting like my why. And all in all, once I forgot my why and it affected my mindset, it affected me physically, it affected me emotionally. So 2024, we ended up losing. I wrestled for the World Class Athlete Program for the Army. I'm a military service member. We ended up losing one of our teammates. A few days later, I ended up losing one of my best friends. And then a week later, I ended up losing my uncle. So there was a lot of loss in the beginning of that 2024 year. And then here we are. I bounced back from that. I win the Olympic trials in Penn State in 2024, and I'm trying to log back again. I got to go to the Olympic qualifier at the Pan American Championships, and while I'm at the Olympic qualifier at the Pan American Championships in Mexico, I ended up tearing my knee. Um, yeah, tearing my knee the day before competition. So here I am trying to like hobble out there and I'm wrestling and I have to wrestle the Olympic silver medalist and world champion first round. And I can barely stand, but in my mind I'm telling myself, you're here, you can do it, you can win. And my mindset was that, no matter what, for 6 minutes, I'm gonna give this guy hell. So I go out there, I'm competing, and I can barely stand. This guy is pushing me all over the mat. I'm like, my knee hurts so bad, but I'm looking over in my corner, and my coach is telling me, "You can do it, you can do it, you can do it." And they're like, "Push through it, push through it, push through it." And I ended up beating them, but I put all my effort into my next match to actually qualify the way for the Olympics. I ended up dropping. I just didn't have the energy to compete and fight for it. So with that, the Olympic process if you don't make it in your region's category, you have to go to the last chance world qualifier, which is a way harder tournament to qualify the Olympics at. So I get back home and the next 3 weeks, I'm rehabbing my knee. I'm getting my mind right and I'm getting ready to go to war. And I remember telling my trainer that, I'm feeling a little bit off. Like I don't know if it's like my balance or what. And they go up and they look inside my ear. They're like, "Oh, you got an ear infection and you might have vertigo too." So I'm like, man, I got all these things happening to me and I got the world qualifier coming up. And I go to the world qualifier and it was probably one of the best tournaments I wrestled ever in my life. Just complete grit. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Greco-Roman wrestling, but uh, the referee decides who they want to put down in the match. If there's no action happening in the match, they decide who they want to put down. And you get an opportunity to turn the guy on the bottom. And so that tournament, I probably got put down 8 times. And each time you get put down, the guy gets a free point, and then they get an opportunity to turn you. I got put down 8 times, and I got on top one time the entire tournament. But I wrestled 6 matches and I won them. I won them all and ended up qualifying the weight for the US. So it's it's mindset can go a long way. Like going in that tournament, I was like, I gotta leave here with something, I got to leave here with something. And it goes hand in hand with resiliency, which I'm about to talk about right now. Your ability to adapt to adverse situations. You know, like I said, like I blew my knee the day before my Olympic qualification in New Mexico, but because of my resiliency, I was ready to go head to head with it. You know, it was something that I had to face, and you know, like I said, like as athletes and you know, as people, human beings, you know, we don't get to choose our best days. You know, that for sure wasn't my best day, but you get to choose the days you get to compete, the days you get to fight. So, if you know, you dig deep and you can remember why you're here, you know, your purpose, why you want things, I'm telling you, like anything is possible.
That was amazing, Kamal. Thank you so much.
No problem. No problem. Thank you all.
All right, so we scheduled a little more Q&A for this one. So
Of course.
any questions, you guys?
Yeah, I'll start. So back in 2024, when you said, you were kind of rocky on your mindset, how did you get back to, finding that spark again?
Honestly, I had to kind of disappear. I had to step away from everyone else. And for myself, I had to remember why I wanted things, why I needed this, you know? So, I remember I was going on a walk and I bring my dogs with me. I got two dogs. I got a cane corso and another one. We drove up to Denver in the middle of the night and we just bought a dog. We love him to death. His name is Roman, but I don't know what he is. I don't know, man. But I just remember going on a walk and I was just like, you know, why not me? You know, why am I in this situation? Why am I hurting so bad? You know, because usually I feel like I'm the toughest guy in the room. You know, like I'm the guy that my teammates can lean on, you know, ask questions, come to me if times are difficult. But at this point, I felt like I was the weakest person in the room. And I remember going on that walk and just thinking like looking back over like where I started and how impactful it would be not only in my life but in my community, not just wrestling but my community in general, everybody who invested in me. I had to remember that a lot of people invested in me, so I wanted to repay those people for all the time they gave me.
Any other questions? All right.
I mean, this mindset is so important in sports, but do you feel like it translates to other parts of your life too?
Absolutely, absolutely. So, even if you're not competing in a sport, you're competing in life. You know, if you want those big promotions, if you know, you want to increase in pay, you're competing. And, you know, those days you're not always going to feel like 100%, but you still have to show up and be professional. And what makes that so easy for me to say is because not only am I a wrestler, but I'm also a soldier in the army. And if I don't know if any of you guys ever been in the army, but a lot of times, you know, your higher ups, they kind of, you know, come down on you a little hard or and whatnot, and you might not be feeling that day, but you still have to, you know, maintain your military bearings and your professionalism.
Go ahead.
When you're about to compete, how do you not let fear get in the way of what you're about to do?
So there's a bunch of things that I actually do. One thing, trust in your preparation. Preparation can eliminate all that fear. If you know you've done the work, then there's nothing you should fear when you show up to compete. Two, remember that regardless if you win, lose, or draw, everybody who supported you is gonna love you regardless. You know, your family's gonna love you, your teammates are gonna love you, your coaches are gonna love you. So don't be afraid to, you know, let people down or disappoint them. You know, just go out there and accomplish the mission. Three, you got to have fun with it. You know, like anything that you do in life, you should have fun with it. You know, you shouldn't be, you know, worried about whether or not, you know, you gotta win. You gotta win. You know, all you have to do is show up and give your best effort. You know, a lot of things don't go people's way. And, you know, some people get down on themselves about it. I never get down on myself about it. I actually make jokes about it sometimes. One of the things I do is like people ask me like, how you feeling? I'm like, yeah, I'll probably go out here and, you know, go right to my back in the first 30 seconds, but we'll see. You know, like you have to go out there with like a little bit of fun in your heart. Don't be shy, I got a lot of answers.
Really, really great stuff, right? You guys have some other questions because you guys don't. I actually had a few.
I got one.
Okay, go for it.
So like you talked about how you gotta show up every day, even if you're having like bad days. And I know you talked about like thinking about your why, but like what are other things that are going through your head on those bad days that kind of make it into a like successful day, I guess.
Um, well, honestly, it depends on the person. So, for me, when I'm having a bad day, all my issues and all my problems sort of cease to like affect me when I'm in the wrestling room when I'm training because like outside problems are supposed to be outside of your job or your business. You can't let that affect what you're doing in the business because like, once again, maintaining that professionalism. One of the things my coaches used to tell me, even if I wasn't feeling it in the room, is fake it till you make it. Like you have to sometimes, go in there, smile on your face, and just sort of kind of get through the day. And then when you're done with your day, giving your best effort, you go home and you make your adjustments. That's a little bit of resiliency right there, because it's challenging. I mean, going into practice, because I was in Croatia the time for a training camp. We were supposed to be out there for a month. I was in Croatia when I found out that my uncle passed away. And every day, like, I went into practice and I worked as hard as I could. And then when I got done with practice, I went and sobbed about it. It was one of those, but the mission doesn't stop and time doesn't stop, based off of how you feeling. If you got things coming up, whether it be homework or work related, time doesn't stop for no man. So you have to pretty much lock in all the time when it comes to those points where you need to be on top of your stuff. And then when you have opportunity to sort of kind of deal with it, you deal with it.
Thank you.
No problem.
Go.
Um, so how did you like find your why?
Yeah.
Oh, great question.
So finding your why, the experience is different for a lot of people. Some people like just start doing something, right? And they're just a natural talent and they understand that, wow, this is why I'm meant to be here. This is why I'm doing it. For me, when I was looking for my why, I was just kind of, observing the room and I was like, I got so many people who, in my eyes, they're babies in the sport. I got a lot of younger brothers in the sport who are, barely able to walk yet, if that makes sense. And so my why was that no matter like until those guys are able to stand and fight for themselves, I have to be the one to stand up and be the face of USA Greco. I have to be the one to go out there, win the big matches, have the big fights and walk off the stage because all it takes is a hero. It takes a little bit of inspiration or somebody to see your fight in order to inspire. So that was like my biggest reason why like I never wanted to like look weak to the people who were coming up because eventually it's gonna be their turn, and then I get to be like the old guy on the side, cheering them on. Oh,
Any other questions from the audience? Okay, I got a couple. Hey Kamal, so I was talking about a lot of not to diminish your sport, but boxing psychology, you know. And we actually had a custom auto quote on Fear, like the whole Fear is Fire. I don't know if I told you guys this, but Kamal's father was a Golden Gloves boxer. Very, very thoughtful, very deep thinker. Um, what was it like having, a dad who was a combat athlete himself, very successful, super technical, dedicated father, and like, how did that really shape your mindset? What did he teach you?
man, my dad is my best friend. My dad is my hero. Let me just start with that. When I think about how far I came with my sport alone, I contributed all to my dad. He always put me in the best position to win when it came time for practice. I was always on time. When it came to tournaments, we didn't just stay local. He drove me everywhere. When I tell you, I think I've almost seen every state in the U.S. because every tournament, my dad was like, hop in the van, we're going to it, and we're not just going to wrestle anybody. We're going to look for the best guy in the bracket, and we're going to go after him. So, because of my dad, I have always had a fearless mindset. I've always felt that I've had support. I felt that I've always had love, and I always felt that when I needed a little stern talking to, like someone who's gonna let you know that, hey, you should have wrestled a little bit harder there, or you should have competed a little bit harder there. That guy's not tougher than you. My dad has always been honest with me. Um, and along the lines, I've developed the honesty with myself to like, wake up and look at myself in the mirror and tell myself, you don't look like the champ today, but once again, you fake it till you make it. You walk in that room and you go and do your work, and then when you go home, you go find the champ. If he's a 30-minute nap away, an hour nap away, whatever, he's a phone call away talking to people. Um, Everybody has that champion inside of them, regardless if it's in sports, regardless if it's in business. You just gotta search for them.
Kamal, yeah, it's funny when you talk about winning, it's almost like things are just expected. You just reduce it like you either won or you didn't, right? Some people do that. But one of the things I really appreciate about your journey was talking about where the US is in Greco-Roman wrestling. Greco-Roman wrestling is extremely competitive internationally. They take it very seriously. That's the one where that's the ultimate bragging rights. Historically, the US has not been as dominant there. And so he didn't mention this, but Kamal actually went pro when he was 16 as part of a special program where they wanted to develop US skills there. And he moved from Chicago to Colorado Springs to train at the Olympic Training Center. And that's how seriously they took it. And one thing I've really appreciated is it's not just I'm the best or how great I am. Kamal's on a track to make history, right? And he's already the first Greco-Roman wrestler in the US to win a world championship when he was younger. And the next time he does that, at the Olympic stage and world championship stage, these are historic events at a competitive level. Come on, what's going through your mind when you're already you have talent, you have the hard work, all the advantages, and then you're also at the same time reaching to make history at the same time, something that you know not everyone around you has done before. What's that like? It's such an extreme paradox.
Yeah, you're not wrong, Bennett. It's just like you said, it's expected, like why put the time, why put the effort in if you want, mediocrity? Like I've never wanted that for myself. I've always seen myself, at the top, and if I wasn't at the top for a certain tournament, well, I'll be darned. Next time I show up, I gotta reach the top of the podium. And it's that competitiveness, like I said, like you were born, so you gotta fight, regardless of what you're doing it, whether you're doing it in the office, fighting for positions, or in sports, you're fighting. So it is one of those things where, you know, you don't want anything other than first. You don't want anything other than first. But sometimes things happen, and so like you can't be pouty boo hoo about it. You got to go and get the next best thing. Um, it's one of those things. What is Denzel Washington? I'm leaving here with something. I just got on a plane for 9 hours. I got on a plane for 9 hours, and I cut a lot of weight. I don't know if you guys know how to measure in kilos. I cut like 16 kilos every time I wrestle. So I'm like, I lost all this weight. I got on a 9 hour flight, and I might have dropped the match, whatever. But I'm leaving here with something. So if you don't get what you aim for, always get the next best thing.
Awesome. With that, thank you so much, Kamal.
Thank you guys for having me. Zubia was here the entire time, just
Wonderful. Thank you so much, man.
looking at all.
Appreciate it. See ya.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your day, guys.
You too.